The Siege of Ma'ara. December 11, 1098. By God's grace I find my hand steady enough to scratch these words. The days grow colder, and with each sunrise my faith battles the creeping doubt in my heart. We stand before the walls of Ma'ara, a city whose name I had never heard before, and yet here we are, thousands of us, set to bring the cross to these distant lands. I hear the priests say this is what God wills, but at times I wonder if God still hears us in this forsaken land. The day began with a chill that sank deep into my bones. The sun was hidden behind a thick shroud of clouds, as if even heaven itself did not wish to witness what was to unfold. Our commanders, the great lords of France and Norman lands, gathered at dawn. Bohemond, always the boldest, called for us to make another push on the walls. The Turks inside were fewer than at Antioch, but still they held firm. Their arrows rained down upon us like the wrath of devils, each shaft a whisper of death, and yet we must press on. The city walls, though old, stand strong against our assaults. Our ladders reach up, only to be pushed back with fire and stone. My brothers fall around me, good men from Flanders, France, and Provence, their blood seeping into the dry, unforgiving earth. But what can we do? There is no turning back. We are too far from home, too deep in this strange world where the very air smells of dust and decay. The fire of battle pushes us forward, but it is hunger that drives us more than anything else. Ah, the hunger. It gnaws at us like a beast, never satisfied. The journey from Antioch was hard enough, and when we took that city, we believed our suffering had ended. But this land gives little. The fields are bare, and the few villages we passed were already emptied of what little food they held. Our bread is black and bitter, and the water stinks. Some say the wells are poisoned by the infidels, but we drink nonetheless, for thirst knows no reason. As the day wore on, we pushed against the walls again. I fought alongside men I barely know, but we are all brothers now, bound by the same holy cause. One of my comrades, a Breton named Jean, fell today, struck by an arrow as he climbed the ladder beside me. I will never forget the sound he made, a gasp, as if surprised, then silence. He fell backward, his body tumbling to the ground. I said a prayer for him, but it was brief. There was no time for more. By midday it became clear that today would not be the day we took Ma'ara. But the captains do not speak of retreat. They speak only of tomorrow and of the next day and the day after that, if necessary. I do not know how long we can last. The people within the city, they must be suffering too, but their suffering is of no concern to us. We are the soldiers of Christ, come to claim this land for him. The priests remind us that our cause is righteous, but I wonder, when we are so hungry, so cold, and so far from home, how much of this is righteousness and how much is desperation? Tonight, as I sit by the meager fire, I hear whispers of what is to come. Some say that if the city does not fall soon, we will be forced to take drastic measures. I do not wish to think of it, but the look in the eyes of my comrades tells me that they are prepared to do whatever is necessary. Hunger has a way of breaking a man, of turning him into something less than human. We are here for God, but what if it is the devil we find inside these walls? As night falls, I pray that tomorrow will bring victory and an end to this siege. But deep down, I know that this is only the beginning. We have many miles yet to go, and many more battles to fight. I do not know if I will live to see Jerusalem, but if God wills it, I will continue. For now, all I can do is survive the night and prepare for the trials that tomorrow will surely bring. May God have mercy on us all. Today, we tried something new. Bohemond, ever the tactician, ordered that we build siege towers to breach the walls. We spent hours dragging wood from the few trees we could find, fashioning the towers as best we could with what little skill we had. The men worked in silence, their eyes hollow from hunger, their hands trembling with exhaustion. But there was a grim determination among us, a feeling that today might be different. When the towers were finally ready, we pushed them toward the walls. The creaking of the wood was deafening, and the ground seemed to shake beneath us as we advanced. The Turks inside the city knew what we intended, and their arrows flew thick and fast. Several of our men fell before we even reached the walls, their bodies crumpling like broken dolls. I tried not to look at them, but their screams echoed in my ears. I climbed the tower with the others, my sword in hand, though I had little strength to wield it. As we reached the top, the defenders pushed back with all their might. I saw a man beside me take a blow to the head with a rock, his skull splitting open like a ripe fruit. Blood splattered across my face, warm and sticky. For a moment, I felt nothing. It was as if I had become numb to the horror of it all. The fighting was fierce, but once again, the city held. We managed to gain a foothold on the walls, but not enough to break through. By midday, the towers were in flames, and we were forced to retreat once more. Our numbers grow smaller with each passing hour, and still, the city stands defiant. As the sun began to set, a strange quiet fell over the camp. The usual mutterings and complaints seemed to fade into an eerie silence. I saw groups of men gathered in hushed conversation, their faces grim. There is talk of what must be done, though no one says it openly. But I hear the word on their lips: cannibalism. It is madness, I know. We are men of God, not savages. But the hunger has driven some to the brink of reason. The bodies of the dead lie in shallow graves around the camp, and more than one man has cast a longing glance at them. I fear that if the city does not fall soon, we will become something less than human, something monstrous. Tonight, I sit by the fire once more, but I do not feel its warmth. The cold is inside me now, in my bones and in my soul. I wonder if this is what God intended for us when He called us to take up the cross. Did He foresee the hunger, the desperation, the madness that now grips us? Or have we strayed so far from His path that we can no longer see the light? I pray for strength, but I do not know if I have any left. Tomorrow will come, and with it, another day of blood and death. I can only hope that God will have mercy on us before we lose ourselves completely. December 12th, 1098. The morning came cold again, but there was something different in the air today. The men were restless, more so than usual. Hunger gnaws at us still, but something darker stirred in our hearts. The captain spoke of renewed efforts, but even their words carried a heaviness that I could not ignore. It is as if the very ground beneath our feet whispers of what is to come. I did not sleep well. I lay by the fire and dreamt of home. A foolish dream, really. I saw my mother in the garden, my sisters laughing as they wove flowers into their hair. But the dream turned sour. The flowers withered, and my mother's face was hollow, her eyes sunken. She looked at me and said, "You bring nothing but death." I woke with a start, my body trembling, though the fire had long since gone out. The city still stands. Its walls, though cracked and worn, resist our every assault. Bohemond and Raymond gathered the knights early today. Word spread through the ranks that they intend to make one final push. We cannot hold out much longer, they say, and neither can the city. Yet, I look upon the walls, and I see no sign of weakness in the faces of those who defend it. They too suffer from hunger, I know, but they fight as though the walls themselves give them strength. I wish I could say the same for us. The men around me have changed. Their eyes are darker, hollow, their skin stretched tight over their bones. There is a tension in the air, like a bowstring pulled taut, ready to snap at any moment. I hear whispers again, louder this time, and I see it in the way some of the men look at the dead. The thought turns my stomach, but I cannot escape it. By noon, we were called to arms. The towers were gone, burned to ash, so we returned to the ladders and rammed the gates once more. I climbed with my sword in hand, though I barely had the strength to lift it. As I reached the top of the ladder, an arrow whizzed past my face, close enough that I felt the air it cut. I stumbled, my foot slipping on the blood-soaked wood, but I managed to hold on. A Turk appeared before me, his scimitar raised high, ready to strike. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I swung my sword wildly, more out of instinct than skill, and by some miracle, it found its mark. The Turk fell, his blood splattering across the wall. For a brief moment, I felt the thrill of battle, the fire that had driven me so far from home. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by the cold, gnawing hunger that never leaves me now. We fought for hours, but it was futile. The city did not fall. and by sunset, we were forced to retreat again. The men staggered back to camp, their bodies broken, their spirits shattered. Some collapsed where they stood, too weak to take another step. I saw a knight from Normandy, a proud man who had once boasted of his riches, fall to his knees and weep like a child. There is no pride left here, only despair. As the darkness of night settled in, something happened that I can scarcely put to words. A group of men gathered near the edge of the camp, away from the fires. I saw them huddled together, whispering in hushed voices. One of them, a man I recognized from my own company, slipped away toward the graves where the bodies of our dead lay buried. I do not know what he intended to do, but the sight of him filled me with a deep, unshakable dread. I turned away, unable to watch, but the others did not. They followed him, their eyes fixed on the same terrible thought. I heard the sound of shovels scraping the hard earth, and then the wet thud of something being dragged from the ground. I closed my eyes and prayed to God for mercy, but I knew in my heart that he had turned his gaze from us. The men did not speak of what they had done. When they returned to the fire, their faces were blank, as if they had left a part of themselves behind in that grave. I did not ask them what they had eaten, but the smell that wafted through the camp made it clear. It was not food that had fed them, but something far darker. December 13th, 1098. The morning brought no peace, only more of the same. Hunger, cold, and the stench of death hang thick over our camp. By now, the city feels like a shadow looming over us, its high walls mocking our every effort. The food stores are nearly gone, and what little we find is barely enough to keep us standing. Even the rats have disappeared, hunted and eaten long ago by the more desperate among us. I write these words with trembling hands, for I fear what we have become. We were sent here as soldiers of Christ, but now we are no better than beasts, driven by hunger and madness. The priests still walk among us, whispering prayers and offering blessings, but their words feel hollow. How can we claim to be the righteous when we have descended into such darkness? I do not know if I can continue this way. My faith, once so strong, is now a flickering flame, barely enough to keep the shadows at bay. I fear that if we do not take the city soon, there will be nothing left of us to save. I pray that God will deliver us from this nightmare, but with each passing day, I wonder if he has abandoned us entirely. Tomorrow will come, and with it, more blood, more death. I can only hope that we find an end to this siege, one way or another, before we lose what little humanity we have left. Henri of Lyon, soldier of the First Crusade.